By the end of this episode, listeners will understand how AI is changing the landscape of everyday work across industries, from strategy to execution, and how they can evolve their role, their value, their visibility without losing their identities. Welcome to the Strategic Thinkers Podcast. This is episode 2 of such a lovely conversation that I get to have with Melody Ann. And I'm just going to do a quick recap. Last week, we talked about not catching up, but actually moving forward. If you tried one simple thing, asking AI one question, checking one summary, testing one prompt, you crossed the threshold. Today, we're talking about what's on the other side of that threshold and how the rules of work itself have changed. So, with that, I'm going to make a promise. By the end of this episode, listeners will understand how AI is changing the landscape of everyday work across industries, from strategy to execution, and how they can evolve their role, their value, their visibility without losing their identity. So that aside, I'm going to say welcome, Melody. It is a pleasure to have you back on. Yeah, I'm excited about this one because now we get to talk about not just the introduction, but the different ways to be able to leverage AI and the ways that people can start to take advantage of it, because we're seeing a lot of shifts and a lot of different things that are taking place right now. And it's important to figure out not just how to catch up, but how to get out ahead of it and how to pivot with some of the new things that are going on right now.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thank you again for having me.
Okay, so I want to open with this thought. Posting consistently used to be enough, or being good at your job used to guarantee visibility. But now we're somewhat in a different stage because it's less about you being good enough, because in some cases, people can copy what it is that you put out there and then repurpose it so that it seems less like an original thought and more just a thought. So there's a lot of things that are going on. I will start with this. What's one rule of work or business that no longer guarantees the same results as it used to?
So it used to be that if you were competent, you just competent in doing the thing that you do, whatever that happens to be, accounting, law, cutting hair, whatever it is, tour guide. If you were competent, you could keep your job. If you were competent and you were willing to speak in public or do some of these scary things that your colleagues didn't want to do, then you get really noticed and you could get promoted faster. Right. But and those skills are still really valuable. Those public speaking skills, those I'm willing to take risks and put myself out to the world, those are still really valuable. But the competency in job, what if AI can do a whole bunch of what you do? What if a lot of what you do can be done by AI? So now you doing just head down doing my job isn't enough. We want to be the thinkers. So this is the job and I can do that. I'm competent and I can get AI to do it and I can start improving things because I'm a thinker by getting AI to do a lot of my work and allowing me my creative space, my thinker space, my innovator space, my problem solver space. And I'm willing to take that out and do the public speaking and all those other scary things that my colleagues don't want to do. And so now how fast can we pivot when necessary? Which humans don't want to do. And I get it. We don't like change. We like sameness. We like that safe space. We all want to live in this safe space. We just don't live in that world right now.
Absolutely. There's so much to unpack with that. One of the things that came to mind is one of the next questions I was going to ask you is, why are experienced professionals feeling less visible and less impactful right now? And you've answered that question in a way of, there are things that people used to do and just naturally get check marks for, and the little stars they put at the top of papers when you're kids. But now it's something where you have to take those extra steps. You have to have a better understanding of the workflow so you can figure out where you can actually bring value, as opposed to just going through the motions. Going through the motions are things that AI can do now.
Yeah.
And one of the other things that stood out is using or leveraging AI. I will say leveraging. Using is, I don't like using people or anything else, but leveraging AI is something that I think more people should be doing, because it frees up that bandwidth. It frees up the space for you to be able to identify the other things, play more to your strengths. If it's something where you know that you're not as good at it and you have no intention of being good at it, then AI is something that you can outsource it to. And it's going to be just as smart, if not smarter than you are in that thing that you would naturally struggle with. So if something takes you 5 hours, AI can probably do it in an hour, or probably even shorter than that. Those are things that I think stand out. And then as far as the experienced professionals, I'll still ask the question, why are experienced professionals feeling less visible or less
Yeah.
impactful right now?
Yeah. So I think that, you know, AI can automate cognitive tasks. And that's what, if you think about a professional, sometimes that was their value. And so job displacement becomes a fear. I also think they worry about erosion of values in the workplace. I think because AI doesn't have its, it doesn't care about ethics in the way that a human cares about, right? But I have to say this, for a long time, we've complained about we're overloaded, we're overworked, we're overwhelmed. I hear this all the time in
Right.
my job. I'm overworked, I'm overwhelmed, it's too much, it's too much pressure. Well, what if we could give AI a whole chunk of our job
Mm.
so that we could still get everything done, but reduce our work hours from those overtime of 50 or 60 hours to working a 35-hour week. And we're still getting
Yeah.
the same amount of work done. Looking at it that way, now we're not saying, oh, I'm just going to be replaced. Oh, it's like, no, the corporations have been asking more and more and more of people.
Yeah.
So what if AI can do some of that more and people can do less and enjoy life more? Wouldn't that be a good thing, right?
Absolutely. I think you're explaining work life balance in a way that it's never really been possible before. I have the workaholic work ethic. So I got it from my mother. It's been passed down from generation to generation. My grandmother had it. So even when I have more free time, I find time to be able to put towards work because I actually enjoy what I do. I do know that there is a balance that you can create leveraging AI because of how efficient it makes you. So for the things that again may take you longer to be able to do, those are the things that I'm going to outsource to AI. I'm going to leverage its ability to be able to summarize something down and allow me to be able to figure out what I want to be able to do with it. So I know one of the things that we talked about was kind of going in with garbage in, garbage out. And this is something where, it can summarize something and then you can review it and then decide do I like where you're going with it? If so, great. We can kind of pick up with it from there. I can add some context. I can streamline things. And then if I don't, then, that's something where you can catch it sooner. So there's so many different ways that you can leverage AI. And it's such a thing of identifying ways to be able to free up your time to focus on the things that actually move the needle. So if you're bogged down with busy work, I remember being on the corporate side and there were just certain days where there were things that I knew I had to do that they didn't help me hit my goals. They didn't help me do any of the other things, but they were part of the job. And just being part of the job, it's a requirement. It is something that you have to do. AI can now take on those tasks and allow you to focus on the things that you actually enjoy doing. So in some cases, yes, it may be putting people at risk, but I don't want to say it across the board, more than not, it's putting people at risk that were kind of going through the motions.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's interesting. The auto industry went through this.
Mhm.
Everything was manual labor. There were people on the assembly line, each putting in a piece. One person, one
Mhm.
person doing one screw 100 or 1,000 times a day, and then automation came in. And, we still build cars, fewer
Yeah.
people work in the industry, but, there might be more people in design now. There might be, and
Yep.
I'm not saying it's not hard when you are facing what feels like an existential threat to your
Mhm.
life, to your life, to your livelihood. Absolutely. I'm not saying it's easy, but I am saying, we go through this every once in a while, the printing press, automation, now AI. We go through this. This is not something AI is new, but the idea of huge innovations completely changing how we live and work,
Yeah.
that's not actually new. And so, we're going to have to go through these things. So if you feel that you're being left behind or you're afraid of AI or you don't trust AI, I understand, but
Mhm.
it doesn't mean AI is going to go away. So let's figure out how we can actually use it day to day to enrich our lives rather than, burying our heads in the sand.
Absolutely. It is definitely here to stay. Granted, it may at some point become regulated. There may be some rules and things that are applied that says you can use it for this, but you can't use it for this. Right now, it's being left up to common sense and common courtesy, but there are going to be people that, there's always the people that find loopholes and ways to use things in ways that they're not supposed to. or in creative ways that may offend some people. I actually saw something where they created an AI actor, and the AI actor had the SAG community in outrage because they started having the AI actor auditioning, and they put out an audition tape, and they said, you know, you can't do stuff like that because there are going to be people that say, you know what, I would rather have that person and get it in one take than have someone that comes in. But the reality is, what people tend to appreciate are our flaws. There's a saying, what is it, wabi sabi, perfectly imperfect. So in my mind, it's not about being perfect at something. It's about the flaws and things that we appreciate. People love an underdog because you're not perfect, because everyone has their flaws and things that they have to be able to work through. So it's less to me about trying to replace someone with something that's perfect and that's flawless, because let's be honest, even when we're using our computers, sometimes we get so used to it being so efficient, and then it does something and we're like, oh my God, why is it taking so long? And it's one of those things where, did it really take long if you think back to how hard it used to be to do something? So
Yes.
we're in a different world. The expectations change. We raise the floor, but it doesn't mean that we're wiping things out completely. I want to say I want to cover that, but I also want to cover the repercussions of some of it. So the attention economy has become an adaptation economy. So the way value is created, delivered, and seen has changed. So now people have gotten smarter. They're more aware. You know, this is one of the reasons why people started fighting with cookies and things like that, to say, you've got way too much of my information. You know how to be able to target me in ways that I don't want from an advertising standpoint. Now that people are more aware, they're asking better questions. AI is allowing people to kind of raise that floor and get to the point where they can understand how to be able to ask better questions, have a better idea of what they're looking at. What are the less obvious ways AI is showing up in daily business that may that most people may overlook?
Yeah, well, I think it's showing up in so many places, and
Hmm.
we just don't even know where to look yet. But I think that what we're seeing on in a lot of the marketing. In
Hmm.
fact, yesterday I was talking to someone. It's Thanksgiving here in Canada, and so we had a family Thanksgiving meal
Happy
yesterday. And
Thanksgiving.
and there was Thanksgiving. And so we were looking at someone's Instagram, and the person was like, "Okay, tell me, is this real or is this AI? Is this ad
Yeah.
a real ad or
Yeah.
AI?" And we were all looking and like, "No, like ice cream doesn't work like that. It would have tipped over by now because they were filling up this ice cream really big, right?"
Yeah.
And so I think it's showing up in our daily lives. And sometimes we don't even know that we're looking at AI because
Mhm.
some of it is so good. And we ended up doing a study on AI ads, Instagram ads yesterday after
Mhm.
Thanksgiving dinner, trying to figure out which ones were AI and which ones weren't. But within business. So you might be looking at a web page, and it could be that AI wrote the web page and then a human went over it, or it could
Mhm.
be that a human wrote the web page and then AI went over it, and it
Yes.
was a partnership. And, I can tell when something's AI, not generally, not
Mhm.
always, but generally I have a fairly good idea because I edit. But yeah, it's showing up just every day, whether it's a sales page you're looking at or an advertisement you're looking at. Sometimes it's hard to tell which is which at this point.
I think it is. I know that there are times where, like, with the AI actor, if they didn't say it was an AI actor, I would have known it was an AI actor. It would have just been someone that I didn't know. So they've gotten better and better with it. I liken it to being someone where, again, I got a very early start into advertising and marketing as far as an introduction to it. So I look at advertising and marketing different than a lot of other people may look at it. So when I used to see ads, I would say, okay, this is who you're targeting. This is how much it probably costs. Like, I was able to unpack it a lot faster. So the people that are paying closer attention to AI have a better idea of how to be able to read AI to say, oh, that's a fake ad, or that's not a real person, or there's this, or there's that. So I think that also kind of goes back to what you were saying of, don't try to catch up. Don't worry about what it used to be. Figure out what it is now. Because I mean, at this point, the way that they're creating things and they're able to take someone's voice and take this and take that, if you don't know what it's capable of, you could literally swear up and down that you saw someone say something and do something, and they'll say, I wasn't even in the States, or I wasn't here, or I wasn't there. Like, that wasn't me. And you would have no reason to believe them. So it's really important to be able to pay closer attention to what's really good advertising, marketing, promotion. This is one of the reasons why I said I believe things that are going to be regulated, because using someone's likeness is going to be something where eventually they're going to have to speak up about that, because they're getting better and better at using people's likeness to be able to get them to say and do all kind of things. I know I saw a commercial with Leonardo DiCaprio, and he was talking about something about getting married. And I was like, last I checked, that man never said he was getting married. If they're not below a certain age, he is not trying to mess with them. So that
Yeah.
was the type of thing that was a telltale sign for me to go, okay, so that's AI. So there are some things where it's common sense, and then there's also things where you have to have the context to really be able to suss out what's real versus what isn't. And I think the regulations will start to come in where they actually have to say, this was used by, or this was created by, and then that's where it's going to change things.
Yes, yes. And at what point do you take an actor who is well known and you create them as an AI? If you do that, if there's a close representation to an actor, that's still their image. So that
Yes.
they should still own that, right?
Hmm.
But, what if you gave someone six fingers? Is that still the actor? We all know
Yeah.
that that person doesn't have six fingers. So we're going to get into conversations about, you know, how accurate is accurate, and at what
Yeah.
point do we say, oh, that's obviously not this person,
Hmm.
right? I think that we're going to go through a lot of this kind of conversation as we are in the publishing world, with the use of full copyrighted books in AI, and the authors are saying no. And some judges have said, well, if they bought it and they put it in there, the results are transformational enough that it doesn't matter. And now there are some studies that are saying that they're finding exact phrasing from things in AI. And so we still have a lot of discussion to have in that area of copyrighted material. Who owns my image? Is it me? Or if you make an AI of me, what does it matter? So I think we have a lot of discussions yet to come in that area, Sean.
Well, that actually makes for a nice teaser, because that is part of our mini series as well. We will be talking more about that and some of the things that we can do to get out ahead of it. I will say, I had a friend that posted about it, and she was saying, again, she was talking about all the different ways they can be leveraged and where are we going to draw the line. And I likened it to the music industry, where they ended up putting in copyrights, and there were still people that tried to figure out ways around it. So the example that I gave was, people will take a song, and before they used to sample it, and now what they do is they get the orchestra and they come in and they will reimagine it. So they'll change a couple of notes so they can say that it's not it exactly. So, like you said, someone can say, well, it's not the same person because they've got six fingers. And we expect the audience to know it because they have six fingers. And it's not one of those things where the layman is going to look at it, but it is a loophole. So eventually, that's why I think some of the regulations and things are going to kick in. I also think that we are in a point, and I'll segue and bring it back to just how it can be leveraged for a workflow. There are the good actors, there are the bad actors. One of the questions I was going to ask you are, why are some professionals struggling to gain traction even though they're doing everything right?
Yeah.
And I think that's something where we're kind of talking about it without talking about it, so we can kind of bring it back around to that. I definitely know where I'm seeing it, because I literally saw someone using similar copy to mine. And I know that I've also seen people ask me about my business model. Then I turn around and see it other places to go, oh, so that's what you're doing. Okay. And I can't even be mad at it. It's just one of those things of, it's the scarcity mindset versus the creative mindset, where I'm not going to run out of ideas.
Yes.
So, why are some professionals struggling to gain traction, even though they're doing everything right?
I think the key to that is, what do we mean by everything right? And I'll give an
Mm,
analogy. If entrepreneurs are out there listening, you may recognize this in yourself, or a friend, entrepreneur friend, where you get a business coach that runs this program, and there are 4 steps, and you're supposed to do all the things in order. And the promise is, if you do them all, you will get these results.
yes.
But the truth is, not every business is the same. Not every business model is
Mhm.
the same. Not every business owner is the same. And so when you get locked into, I'm doing it right, why isn't it working? It's, well, you're doing it right for whom,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
For whom are you doing it right? Because if you are not getting results, then you are not doing it right for you. And
Absolutely.
I think we get really tied in. I mean, I've had friends who, go through these business programs and coaching programs. And it's like, I don't know why it's not working. And then the person who runs it's like, you're not following it enough. It's like, no, that's not it. It's not right for you. And
Yes.
so I think if you feel like you're doing everything right and you're not getting the results you want with AI or anything for that matter, your marketing, anything at all, then maybe question that it's not right for you. And instead of
Hmm.
trying to do everything right, stop, take a breath, and figure out what's right for you, what's going to work for you, and play around with it, experiment until you find the formula, that your own formula. You are your own guru, right? You are your
Yes.
own master. You can, we were talking earlier. You were watching some YouTube videos, and you were like,
Hmm.
"Yeah, I like the content, but I don't like the delivery," or I like this, but I don't like that. And yes, absolutely, because you recognize that it's not about doing it right. It's about you figuring out what's right for you and your business and your clients. So that's my best answer to that. It's not, don't try to do everything right. Do it right for you.
I love that response. You're not just speaking my language, you're speaking to my soul. Like that registered to me on such a meaningful way. This is a conversation that I not only have, is one that I wholeheartedly believe in. There are so many people that can read the same sentence and get something different from it. This is why when I looked at the copy and I saw some people using some of the same words and trying to mimic certain things, I'm like, you can go ahead and have that.
Yeah.
Because at some point someone's going to ask you a question and they're going to look for context and you're not going to have the context because the context is my context. So for the level of people that have said, well, tell me about your business model, and then I turn around and see a version of it, my thing is, you're not going to be able to make it you unless you're watching it with the intention of making it you. So
Yes.
I think that is where people can kind of differentiate themselves, and it's something where it's really really important. There are one of the things that I'll put it this way. One of the things that I ask people when I'm working with them is I start with an assessment. And my assessment is on who they are, their personality, their surrounding circumstances, because that's what I want to build something around. AI can give you a very generic version of something. And that's why a lot of times when you see something online, it sounds similar to what you've seen someplace else, but it might have a little tweak here, a little tweak there. Part of my market research, I'm a market researcher at heart. We're talking about YouTube. I was watching a video, the guy was talking about marketing and advertising, and we both do frameworks. I like frameworks because originally when I started my business and when I would give insights, I would give instructions. And what I realized is people don't like to follow instructions. They like to have creative license. And if I give them instructions, I'm saying, do this, 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 and this. And if you do it this way, I can all but almost guarantee those results. Inevitably, they're going to do something different and they're still going to want to hold me accountable. So I had to make the pivot and the adjustment of recognizing who the audience is and how they work and saying, okay, I no longer give instructions. Now I give guidelines. And my guidelines are based on you're going to do something different than what I told you to do. So I'm not telling you how to get to this point by doing these things. I'm saying here's how to get back to where you're supposed to be based on when you go do something that's the opposite of what I'm telling you to do.
Yeah.
So they're milestones. They're the lighthouse that says, here's how you can get back to the main road
Yeah.
when you go left, when you get lost in the weeds and things like that. So I think that's where you can start to differentiate yourself and you can start to identify why you're not gaining traction. You're probably not gaining traction because you're doing something based on someone else's business model or someone else's idea. And it's not enough of you in it so that when people go to have a conversation with you, they don't see you, they just see the content. And I think that's where sometimes there's a disconnect. And then I'll flip it even more where one of the things that I'll say is as someone that focuses on brand strategy, there are a lot of people entrepreneur wise that will create messaging and it's all about them. And what I would try to remind people is there's a difference between a larger business and a smaller business. In a larger business, it is supply and demand. In a smaller business, it's demand and supply. So if you're not basing your information on the audience and why they should care, then you're setting yourself up for a longer sales cycle because you have to wait for them to come around to your point of view.
Yeah.
Whereas if you create something where you're making it about them and they can see themselves in the story, they can see themselves in the solution and everything that you're putting together, then you shorten the sales cycle. So I love what you said because it speaks to who are you actually speaking to. There's a saying, if you're not getting the right answers, you're not asking the right questions.
Yeah.
So that's why when you said it, it really spoke to me because I've seen it so many different times and it inevitably comes back down to that. If you're running into a problem and you feel like you're doing everything right by whose standards?
Exactly. Yes. And I wanted to say as well to what you were saying, if somebody comes along and steals my idea, My response is, "That's okay. You work by taking other people's ideas. I'm a creative, I'm innovative, I'm a problem solver. I can come up with new things. I'm not going to be afraid of someone who can only find success through taking others' ideas." And that extends to AI as well. So if all I do is go to AI and say, I'm going to start a business and this is what I want to do, and give me a business plan and tell me what to do, step A, step B, step C, and I just follow this generic path, and I don't do any innovating or problem solving or creativity on my own, that's a very generic business with a very generic product. And that's not how I'm going to use AI, because I'm the mind, right? I'm the creator, I'm the creative, I'm the founder. And when I use AI, then I'm putting my own into it. And if somebody comes along and sees what I've done and takes it, well, they're probably not putting their own into it, because their strategy is to go take other people's things and run with it because they think that generically that idea works. So and of course, I'm not looking, when I run a business, I'm not looking to be the cheapest chocolate bar on the shelf.
Right.
Right? Because I also believe that's a mistake. It's like, oh, I'll be the generic chocolate bar. Lots of people buy generic chocolate bars, and that's great, but the profit margin is really tiny, and it's kind of a boring business to run. And it's not very fun and exciting. And, building a community around something that's boring it's not a long-term plan. And so, I'm not the cheapest chocolate bar on the shelf. And if you want my idea and you want to try to turn it into the cheapest chocolate bar, you go right ahead. If AI gives me the cheapest chocolate bar, I'm going to put my own flavors in it because it needs to be mine, because that's what people pay for. They don't pay for me to go to AI, get some generic idea and replicate it and pass it on. Yeah, go to AI, Melody, go learn, go use things. But in the end, we're all really selling our own personality. We're selling ourselves in many ways. Even a huge company like Coca-Cola is selling the personality of Coca-Cola,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Pepsi, Coke probably taste the same. Don't tell that to someone who drinks them.
Blind test.
Because
Yes. Don't. Yeah.
right? Because they're loyal to a brand, which is kind of a personality, corporate personality. And so, yeah, you want my ideas, go for it. I've never hoarded my ideas, because why? There are more ideas.
Yeah, that's why I liken it to the scarcity mindset. If you feel like there's a scarce amount of resources or people, then you're going to scramble, you're going to do extra things. The YouTube videos that I was watching, and where I said I was going back and forth with AI, it was because I was basing my business on my principles. And where they were like, oh, yeah, you could this and you could that. And my thing is, no, that's just not who I am as a person. So part of what it was saying is like, oh, you could do a tear down. And my thing is, I don't like to trigger people, because then one of the things that bothers me is there are people that will trigger someone in their advertising, and then they don't have the follow through. So if you tear somebody down, then I feel like you have the responsibility to build them back up. So the example that I gave to AI was, I remember doing a website teardown, and I mean they just tore through my stuff, and it was like, oh, I don't like a one stop shop, and I don't this and I don't that, and I was like, but I actually know how to do all the things I'm saying, and they're like,
Yeah.
that's not the point. And at the end of it, like, they highlighted all of these things. I'm an overthinker. So they planted all these seeds in my head. And then at the end of it, they didn't give me solutions. They just told me what the problems were.
Yes.
So then I spent the rest of the time sitting there going, okay, I got to fix this. I got to fix this. And I obsessed about it. And I mean, the upside of it is I taught myself how to be able to make the changes so that I could fix it. But not everybody's going to be in a position to be able to do that. So I think there's
Yeah.
a responsibility to know yourself well enough to know what you
Yeah.
can and you can't do.
Yeah.
I think that's where value comes in.
Yeah.
Because again, over 90% of sales are based on emotional connections or emotional responses. So if you're giving someone something that's generic, they feel that it's generic. You're not going to get the buy-in from them the same ways. I was having that conversation, or I'll say that argument with AI, and then I also had a separate conversation argument with AI where we were talking about the copying of information. And my thing is, you know what? That's okay. They can go ahead and get it started. All they're doing is being the awareness part of my customer journey. And
Yeah.
AI couldn't it couldn't comprehend what I was saying. It was like, well, no, the algorithm will technically reward them. And I'm like, it will, but it's on the part of where someone starts to gather the information. They may be the introduction to that talking point, but if you're the person that actually has context and understands the nuance of it, when they go to ask follow up questions and they're actually at the point of wanting to take action, then the people that stole your content aren't going to be able to answer those questions the way that you can answer them. And
Yeah.
that forces them to go look for the better responses and the people that can answer their follow-up questions. And in that point, that's when I turn around to those people and I say, thank you for introducing them to me,
Yeah.
because you basically told the algorithm that this is something that people are talking about. And now that they know that they're talking about it, now they're searching for someone that can answer the question in a better way. So
Yeah.
I say
Same.
that to the people that are worried about someone copying their content. Trust the process, because the better you understand the process, the more you'll understand people will eventually get to the point where they ask follow-up questions that those people can't answer. And as long as you stay true to yourself and the information that you're putting out there, they'll always find their way back to you at some point.
Yes. And same if you go onto AI and you get it to give you a marketing plan or a series of ads, you have to understand what's behind it, right? It's not, you don't just say, oh, well, AI told me to make this ad and it told me to tell my video person to do this and to say this. Okay, well, you understand your business better than AI does. So think
Hopefully.
about this and make sure this is valid. Because if you're just trusting AI, you're doing it right, but you're not doing it right for you. And so
Yes.
I think that's a huge piece of AI. Well, AI lies all the time as well. We can talk
Yes.
about that
Yes, it
if you want
does.
to. Like, why does AI lie? How does it actually work? Like, how do, we can talk about that later if you want. But yeah, make it yours. Everything you do, make it yours. Make it belong to you or your company, your corporation, whatever it happens to be. Yeah.
I think this is the perfect segue into the next question, which is what shifts in how we define value are now surfacing in business. And I think we've somewhat captured that to say, if you're just putting something out there and it's generic, then it's not necessarily valuable information. It's just information.
Yeah.
The value is in you making it you, having the story or context that you can add to it, because the context is what allows people to be able to see themselves in what it is that you're sharing, in addition to what it is that you put out there. So there are people that we've joked where I said, you know what, I can't stand how many times I'll hear people repackage the hero's journey as their framework,
Yes.
like it's something that they created. And I'm like, you know how long that's been around and how many different iterations of it there is. But in the retelling of it, you're like, oh, well, here's my framework that nobody else is
Yeah.
using or thinking about, and
Yeah.
here's how you use it.
Yeah.
And it's just for those that know what they're looking at, it's just like, but at the same time, you come around to realizing what's valuable. And in some cases, it may be valuable to somebody, because if
Yeah.
you didn't know about it, that's the value.
Yes.
Then as you get more intelligent and more informed, then you
Yes.
start to ask better questions.
Yeah. And at the very least, if you're going to rework the hero's journey,
Mm.
the very least, credit the source, no matter what it
Yeah.
is. Credit the source. It's okay to rework something. It's okay to say, I love this person's framework. I'm reworking it and I'm going to use it this way. Just credit it. That's okay. This is what
Yeah.
happens in science. We learn
Hmm.
something about biology and then another person comes along and reads that, studies that, does the next experiment, learns something more, and then we build and we build and we build. We can do
Yeah.
that in business as well. We can do that in
Yeah.
literature. We can do that in science. We can do that in business. It's okay to build. It's okay to use AI to build. Credit the source. Nothing wrong with crediting the source.
Nothing wrong with it at all. I love to be able to say where I found things. I
Mhm.
remember finding Bob Mesta's customer journey, and he talked about the customer journey, but he talked about it from an earlier stage. So he was talking about passive looking and active looking, and these are steps before the know like trust. So I learned enough about it to be able to go, okay, I can not only leverage that, but now I'm going to give my version of it and explain it in a way that makes sense to me, and then
Yes.
try to explain it to the people that understand the way that I explain things. So where he talked about passive looking and active looking, he basically said, well, there are some things that people don't know is possible. So you're planting the seed of this is something that you can potentially be able to do. And then active looking is once someone puts something in your mind and you go from thinking it's impossible and you start to realize that it is possible, you start to see it everywhere. So it's
Yes. Bring
like,
cards.
it's just one of those things. It's human
Yeah.
nature. Once I found that, then that led to part of my frameworks where I say, the whole point to a customer journey is to take things from being impossible to possible to
That's all.
plausible to a foregone conclusion. So
Yes. Yes.
I credit him for putting that, giving me the thought of, no, go back earlier. Look at
Yeah.
where you can actually plant the seed. Because
Yeah.
when I talk to small business owners, I'm like, if you're trying to compete against people that are already established, have the conversation before they even get to those people. Because at that point, by the time everybody else catches up to the conversation, you've already established yourself as a trusted resource. And then it decreases the chances of them going someplace else, as long as, and we go back to what we were talking about, as long as your information is valuable.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the caveats of how do you define value? You define value by making sure that you're giving someone information or
Yeah.
solutions or opening their world or perspectives to things that they didn't know were possible. And then once they realize it's possible, are you someone that can actually help them get to that solution?
Yeah.
And I think that's a big thing. And in some cases, I've actually spoken to some people who say, you don't even have to be the person that delivers the solution. You can be just be the person that introduced them to it. There's a whole business model around introducing something to someone and saying, you know what, I'm not going to be the best person to follow through on that. Like as a strategist, I love coming up with the strategies. The implementation, it depends on the person, because some
Yeah.
people it can take a little bit slow, it can take a little longer to get to the results. And because I know what I'm looking at, sometimes I am moving at a pace. So I have to be aware that there are some people, they need to move at their pace. If it's something where I think I'm not going to be helpful to them, I would rather give them the information, allow them to be able to work through it at their pace, as opposed to me trying to force my pace upon them. There's so
Absolutely.
many different ways to leverage AI, and that's just one more way to be able to use it, is to identify those blind spots. So that's my example, but can you share an example where AI revealed something about your business or clients that you hadn't noticed before?
Yeah, so I never use AI for clients' work unless the client knows I'm using AI for their
Mm,
work, because I'm very aware that different clients feel differently. And so I only use it with my clients because I've built my own, I can, there are certain things that I've trained AI to do, but I only do that with clients if I have explicit permission, just because I understand people have a lot of feelings around AI
yeah.
still.
Yeah.
So anyway, to answer your question, a really good example of that is this. One day I decided to do a little research on who else is out there doing something similar to me. So
Hmm.
I went to AI and I said, who out there does, and I listed off some of the things I did. I'm like, can you find a company that does exactly what I do? Or can you find companies that do two or three similar things that I do? And then it was interesting because then I landed up saying, okay, so in this industry, what are the different types of companies? And under
Yeah.
each kind of category, what are some of the companies that are well known in that category? And then I looked at that and then I compared it to companies that did one or some of the things I do to see kind of all the different areas I might fit in. And it was so interesting. And again,
Mm,
do your own research, ask AI for the sources, right? So that you
hmm.
can check up on them. But it was so interesting to start thinking about my business, not just generally I'm in publishing, but like all the different pieces and where might I fit and
Yeah.
what what does that information give me and what can I do with that and how can I better understand myself, my meaning my business and where I fit and how I might talk about myself and where I fit in the publishing landscape. It was really interesting. The result was quite surprising, and it was something that I didn't quite mean to do. I was really just saying like, oh, who does similar things to what I do?
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
it turned into this huge research project that was very enlightening.
I'm in 100% agreement. I have come by more content and pivots that I've made with my business that way than I have going through it just a regular way, because one of the things that we're talking about is different ways to use AI. I use AI to be able to show me perspectives that I probably wouldn't find on my own, because I live in my own bubble. I'm going to come in contact with like-minded people, and for the times that I run into people that aren't like-minded, that's few and further between. AI actually is far reaching. It can find these people, it can find out things that I don't know and then present them to me. And then that's where you can start to identify different things that you may not have been aware of. I know one of the examples you gave in the previous episode was being able to use AI to do fact checks and research on people and identify things that you can kind of summarize it to have a more meaningful conversation with people. So I know that's another way that it's something that's being added in. What kind of roles are emerging that didn't necessarily exist 5 years ago?
It exists. What rules are existing? Sorry, say that again.
No, no, no. I'm sorry. What kind of roles? It's the New Yorker in me.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
thank you.
Anytime you throw an R in there, we completely throw everything off. What kind of roles are emerging that didn't exist 5 years ago.
Yes. Well, as we know, AI lies, right?
Mhm.
It just makes things up randomly now and then. So fact checkers are really important. And then AI, because A- AI goes out, looks for content, and gives you content, and then you write content, you put it back out and online, and AI finds that and brings it
Mhm.
in. And, so
Mhm. Mhm.
so sometimes we need to have someone kind of curate a process for us that will actually work within our context.
Yes.
So, people who are creating processes or system thinkers.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
AI doesn't always come up with the right system. Like I would not want AI to completely plan a rocket launch for us, right?
No.
Like, because it just doesn't
No.
have the same values. And then maybe one day it can do it. But I think as of yet, I don't think we should leave every last detail of a system, a really
Mhm.
important system, our waterworks, our electricity, rocket launches, completely to AI. Because it doesn't, think about our water system. Well, AI doesn't drink water. So it
Yeah.
doesn't truly understand how important it is to us. And it might
Yes.
just go, well, we don't have a lot of water. Why don't we just turn it off for 4 months until we have enough
Mhm.
water again?
Mhm.
It's like,
You'll
no,
be fine.
humans can't do that, right? So we need system thinkers. We need people who create processes. We need people who check facts. We need people who look at what AI does and kind of yay or nay it, right? I think
Yes.
those are going to be really important things. So I can go online and I can create a workout plan for me. I can create a nutrition plan for me. I can do,
Mhm.
I draft newsletters, all these things. But what if AI has the wrong information? It gives me a meal plan that's actually doesn't help me hit my goals. What
Yes.
if I get a workout that lands up injuring me because more injuring me more because I'm actually trying to rehab from an injury
Mhm.
and it doesn't quite get that? What if the newsletter that it writes really doesn't speak to my people the way I would know how to speak to them. So I can get my ideas from AI, but I think there's still levels of uh, human oversight that are incredibly necessary. So I like to think of AI as
Mhm.
a new employee, just got out of university, has just finished their, let's say their master's degree. They've never
Love
actually
it.
done a single day of real work.
Mhm.
So although they have all this information, most of it correct, not all of it, but most of it
Mhm.
correct, although they have all this information, they've never had to apply it in a real situation.
Yes.
So they're
Yes.
great. New employees are great. They're enthusiastic. They want to bring all their knowledge. They're these wonderful human beings, but we can't trust them.
Very true.
Right. And so they can do a certain level of work, but they
Mhm.
can't do the visioning. They can't do the final checks on the systems that are live or die systems for humans, right? They still need oversight from others. And AI is that employee, that kind of enthusiastic, how can I help you
Yes.
employee who needs
Yes.
a mature adult in the room for oversight.
Yes. Yes. I will piggyback that and try to see if I can simplify it even more by
Uh-huh.
saying AI is not going to be responsible for the consequences.
No.
If we just you are accountable. I will say if you start and stop with that, then you will always like because there are plenty of people who are like, I just let it go and take care of that. That's fine, you can. But if anything goes wrong, AI is just going to apologize, and it's not going to be. It's the worst thing can happen is you're gonna end your subscription.
I have a
And
great
then there's going to be
example.
somebody else to take your place.
Yeah. I have a great example for that. This
Hmm.
September, when one of my children is in fourth year university, this
Okay.
September, she walked into one of her classes and the professor said, you know what? If you guys want to use ChatGPT for research, go right ahead. I'm not here to stop you using ChatGPT, but I will tell you, you are responsible for anything you hand in. So if
Yeah.
ChatGPT lies to you or gives you a fake source or misquotes a source or you don't have a source or like anything or AI gives you something that's actually plagiarized from somewhere else,
Hmm.
it's on you. And here's the thing, those things, they're enough to get you kicked out of university.
Yeah. Yeah.
Plagiarizing, cheating, not giving sources, being deceptive, all of these you get written up, but eventually if you keep doing that, you get kicked out of university. So essentially he said, you want to use it, go ahead. You are fully responsible. You're an adult. You're adults. You're fully responsible for the consequences that come to you from using it. And I thought, wow. It's like, yeah, most professors like, don't use it, don't use AI. But this guy's like, no, go ahead and use it. You are responsible for everything that comes out of it. And my daughter's like, that's just scared me. Like, I don't want to make a mistake and like forget or like use a sentence and it's actually plagiarized, but I didn't know, like, because the professors all have like plagiarism checks and all this stuff, right? Just like that was scary. It went from, oh, we'll use it, we won't tell him, to, oh my gosh, he doesn't care, but he's watching.
Absolutely.
That's a great example of that, right? You are
It
in
it
the
is
end
a it is
responsible.
a great example because again, it's the accountability and the consequences. So AI has the ability of lulling you into a false sense of security. And that easy button, it just makes it seem like, oh, well, it's so easy. But when the consequences are steep enough, I am someone that and this is one of the things that we'll talk about, like some of the things that AI has shown you. One of the things that I was looking at based on looking at that YouTube video, and I was talking about the differences between the way that person thinks and the way that I think, and the way he was saying something. I was like, when he said it, it meant like 5 different things to me. And
Yeah.
AI's response was, well, there are some people that have processed things in some ways. Like some people are more divergent, some people are more convergent. And it said, you are more of a dimensional thinker. So I was like, that's an interesting way to be able to put it.
Yeah.
And what I realized what it was saying is when I hear something, I hear it like 20 different ways and I just cancel things out as I get more context. And then I
Yeah.
start to narrow it down to be able to say, okay, well, this is what you meant.
Yeah.
So in some cases, somebody would be like, well, why aren't you quick with it? And I'm like, it's not that I'm not quick with it. It's that I'm looking at all the different possibilities. So as a strategist, it works for me because my thing is there's so many different paths to the same destination. What I'm trying to do is identify the one that's the path of least resistance for you, as opposed to someone that says, oh, there's just one way to do something. So again, that kind of goes back to the instructions versus guidelines.
Yeah.
When I look at AI, I'm looking at the consequences. I'm like, okay, well, if I do this, I'm responsible. There's a movie, and one of the quotes that stood out to me was, I want to say the movie is The Contender, and it's a saying where in the beginning they used it one way, and then towards the end they used it another way. Where the person said, "Well, how could you do that?" His thing is, "Well, let's just say I'm guilty but not responsible." And then the flip side of it was, "Well, let's just say I'm responsible but I'm not guilty." So guilty but not responsible of, I'm guilty of using AI, but I'm not responsible for the results that it delivers. AI is going to be guilty of giving you false information, but it's not responsible for what you use,
Exactly.
the flip side to that is, yes, you're responsible for using AI and you will be found guilty of using it the wrong way. So if you're not thinking about the ramifications of how you're using it and all the different things, the fallout that can come from it, then it is an easy button, but it's an easy button that comes with consequences. So when you look at it from that perspective, that's why oversight is still going to be important. That's why you still have to weigh in on what it gives you because, like I said, it was telling me, oh, yeah, do a teardown, do this, do that. I'm like, as a person, I don't want to be responsible for breaking somebody down because in entrepreneurship, I never know what somebody's going through. Like I know when you go in entrepreneurship, you have to be okay with certain risk and certain parts of it and things like that. But I don't know what your personal life is. I don't know what you have at stake. But one of the things that I used to tell people is I don't know what you had to do to make that dollar. And because I have that in my mind, my thing is your dollar is more valuable to me than my dollar because I know what I had to do to make my dollar. I don't know what you had to do to make yours. You may have made some sacrifices that if someone asked me if I would do that, I would be like, there's no way in the world you could pay me enough to do that. But you might have taken it for that dollar. So I keep those things in mind and I try to look at it from that perspective.
Yeah.
I think when you start looking at it from things where you realize what it's like to be on the other side of that table, you start to see the responsibility, the accountability, and the things that you should keep in mind. That's the scare tactic part of AI. So we've talked about the downsides of it. One of the things that I would say is, and bringing it back is, how can someone who doesn't think of themselves as creative still leverage AI to gain strategic advantages? We've talked about how it can kind of identify some things that you might not have been aware of, but are there other aspects that you think would actually pay off?
Yeah, I do. So I'll tell you a story about an author I worked with. She was one of those people who, like, the blank page was really scary. So when she started, every time she started writing, she felt like she was starting with a completely blank page. Even if she had 30,000 words done, it still
Okay.
felt like a blank page. And those first few minutes, just trying to figure out like what to start with was always really hard. So one day she very guiltily admitted to me that she would go to AI and she would type in the topic and say, give me a couple of questions to answer. And then she'd take those questions, she'd write them out, and she'd answer those. She said, once I was going, I was fine.
Mhm.
But I have this whole like blank page fear, which a lot of people do. This blank
Yeah.
page is really scary, right? But so she said I would go to AI for prompts, but then I would, once I was going, I was fine. And I said, why are you being so guilty about it? Well, I'm using AI. No, you're not. Well, yes, you are, but AI is not writing for you.
Right.
You're saying this is the topic I'm writing on. What are some questions readers might have
Mhm.
to get your juices, your creative juices flowing, to get you out of that blank page paralysis. I think that's an excellent way to use AI. AI can help you. If you don't feel creative, AI can help you in many ways. It can, it can find, you could go to AI. Here's a prompt. You could go to AI and say, I want to try something new. I'm a beginner at painting,
Mhm.
and all I have at home are some water pencils, and I don't even know what to draw. I have some blank paper and I have some water pencils, and I want to learn. I don't even know where to start.
Right.
Give me some suggestions. And AI could go, I'll go look at everyone who teaches watercolor painting and then see what first projects, and they could come back with, here are 5 common first projects. And
Yes.
then you could say, can you actually give me an image that I might try to draw? And can you then give me the image and then tell me what brush strokes to do? It could,
Mhm.
maybe a painter started with paint by number, right?
Mhm.
It feels like that, but maybe that builds confidence. Maybe that helps you learn about brush strokes. And that's what was holding you back, or whatever it happens to be. So you can go to AI and say, I want to write about this topic. I want to write about copy editing and why it's so important. What
Mhm.
might people ask about it? Give me 5 questions. And then I'm just answering the questions. I'm still going to organize it. I'm still going
Yeah.
to come up with my own answers, but it's starting me off. There's lots of ways AI can start you off and in a creative endeavor or in innovation. And also partnering with it. I have this problem that I want to solve, and I've done this. I've gone to AI with a problem. I said, I have this problem I want to solve. I've brainstormed. Here's my brainstorm list.
Yes.
Organize it and add to it. So, you'll organize it inside. I would tell it, organize it by, I don't know, alphabetical order, which I wouldn't,
Mhm.
but, order it by how expensive to how inexpensive or something like that. And then add 10 more ideas. And then it adds 10
Yeah.
more ideas. And now I have gone from my list of 10 brainstorms to 20 brainstorms, but I'm still in control. It's still my innovation. I'm still going to choose what to do and how to do it and when to do it and how much my budget is. I'm still making all those choices. So AI can help you in a myriad of ways to be more innovative, to be more creative, and to be a better problem solver. Right? You don't have to lean on it. It can help you, or you can partner with it. Both work.
Absolutely. I use it both as something to brainstorm with, and I also use it as a partner. In some cases, it keeps me honest because, again, I have 20 different things running around in my head at the same time, and it will say, I need you to narrow it down a little bit. And then there's other times where I may go to AI and I'll flip what you said and say, identify all the things that people are talking about and help. And I'll use that to identify the things that are blind spots that people aren't talking about. And then that's where it gives me content that nobody else is really covering. And that's where you can stand out. So there are a lot of people using AI with the herd method of show me what's trending. I don't want what's trending. I want what nobody else is talking about. So I look at content, depending on the platform you're using it on and how you structure everything, as being evergreen. I don't need to be able to have you catch it right in a moment. If I create something valuable enough,
Yeah.
eventually you'll find it. And when you find it, I'll be the only person that you're really looking at that has that content. So I play the long game.
Yes.
I used to have a saying on
Wise.
the corporate side. I said, you're chasing 20s in the wind and stepping on $100 bills. So
Yeah.
if you're running around trying to get the thing that just seems like everybody else is going after, you never know what you're missing. So I use AI to identify the things that people are missing. And that's where we see a lot of content that seems like it's repetitive. People are just kind of repackaging, repurposing. I think it's more important, or at least in my opinion, And based on the way that I do things, I'm more patient with it. I don't mind waiting. I think part of that comes from getting the start in the music industry. I got to see what the stars look like that were on stage, and I realized those stars came and went, but the producers, the A&R reps, all the rest of those people, their careers lasted way longer than most of the artists.
Yeah.
So I want to be a kingmaker. I want to be the person that identifies the things that are going on behind the scenes as opposed to the person that looks for the limelight. The person that finds the thing that's trending, you're valuable until that thing stops trending. But the person that identifies how they came up with the thing that was trending, the workflow, the process, they understand the whole thing. They can identify the pieces that nobody else is really looking at. And that's where the real value starts to kick in. So for me, I would say, especially for small business owners and early stage businesses, yes, you can chase the thing that's trending. Do that to be able to cover your bills. But when you're looking to be able to build a sustainable business, also find the things that nobody else is really talking about. And that's how you carve out your niche. That's how you find a sliver of something that nobody else is really covering or trying to go after. I apologize for interrupting the episode, but I wanted to share something with you. Every entrepreneur has natural competitive advantages that they're not fully utilizing. The problem is we're often blind to our own strengths because they feel effortless to us. What comes natural to you may be incredibly difficult to your competitors. What you take for granted might be exactly what sets you apart in the marketplace. My Unfair Business Advantage quiz helps you identify the hidden competitive advantages that give you a clear strategy for leveraging them. It's a quick 10-minute assessment that could transform how you position yourself and your business. Check the link in the description and let's get you back to the episode. I know a lot of people that are strategists and people that are on the advertising and marketing side, and they are bewildered by the fact that they say, why do you pursue people when you spent 20, 30 years pursuing people that were 7 figures, 6 figures plus businesses? Why are you interested in people below 6 figures? And I was like, because all of y'all are chasing people out of 250K or more. So why am I going to stay over in a competitive spot where you guys are cutthroat and you're competing and there's a scarcity mindset when I can go over there? And what I looked at is, okay, what's the majority of businesses? The majority of businesses are small businesses. Yeah. The joke is, like when I started my agency, I called it majority media. And they were like, well, why majority of media? Because the majority of businesses are small businesses. So I'm going to work with the majority and I'm going to leave the other ones to you and you can go pursue them as much as you want. I have nothing but people that I can work with if I want to be able to do it that way. So find things that allow you to be able to stand out and be yourself and stick with your principles. So for me, principles matter. I could have stayed on the corporate side and made money. But what I realized is I was in rooms where people were having conversations that made me uncomfortable because I knew if other people heard what they were saying outside the room, they would feel some kind of way about it. And being in the room and privileged enough to be able to hear how some of these things come to be or come to pass rather, it was enough for me to go, yeah, no, I actually have to be the counter to that now. I hope the people on top stay on top, but now I see how you stayed on top. So now I actually have to clear my ledger and go help the people that are on the bottom go, yeah, I've run some people out of business. I've made some people burn through their savings, helping those people. So now this is my way of kind of giving back. So depending on what your values are, your principles, and how you go about doing things, those are the things that actually bring value to people. So sometimes I'll have conversations with people, and that's the thing that won me the business. Like, am I going to be the person that offers the most features and all the rest of that? No. Is it the easiest answer? No. I'm going to tell you what I'm giving you is not going to be the easiest way to it's not going to be the fastest way to do it. It's not going to be the most glamorous, but it's the most sustainable. Like once you do this, then you'll be able to figure out how to be able to do it for the long haul. And there are some people, if you're okay with waiting to find the people that you want to be able to have that you want to work with, it's so much more rewarding. So that's my soapbox. That's my little tidbit for that.
If I could add to that, a lot of people see, I know that a lot of people, because I see these ads, AI, use AI to build a 6-figure business overnight. So just like, well, what do you value? Do you value, if there are some, talking about evergreen, there are certain things in marketing that will always work. Relationships. A lot of my business comes from referrals. Why? Because I'm really good to my clients. They get the very best of me. I'm kind to them. I'm supportive. I cheerlead them. I encourage them. I build relationships. And then every time I finish a job, they send 2 more people. Yes. And it builds and it builds and it builds. And I started out on my own, taking anyone who would give me work. And now I can say, I don't want to work with that person. Mm-hmm. That's not for me. And not only am I working, now I'm paying other people. So I'm helping other people earn enough money to raise their families and do the things they want in life. And it didn't happen overnight. And I didn't come up with some grand scheme to get rich quick. I I stuck to the foundations of good business, which is relationships. I treat the people who work with me, whether it's working in the company with me, I don't have employees, I use contractors because they
Mhm.
also have their own other thing going on, rather than a quick fix or a fast buck. And I think in the end that wins, and the AI is not going to change that. We may have a blip of people who's like, I figured out how to use AI to make a
Mhm.
fast buck. Great. But you're going to make a fast buck and then you're not going to make any more money after that, because people aren't interested in losing their money to you, right? They want good people. Yeah.
Absolutely. I view it as AI can help create a pyramid scheme or it can create a business. And
Yes.
the pyramid schemes are the things where I see gurus talking about I can help you get to this like 30K or 100K in 30 days. My thing is you're leveraging something that's trending. What happens when that trend stops?
Yeah.
Then you have to come up with the next thing. Then you have to come up with the next thing. Then you have to come up
A
with the next
lot of
thing.
work.
And it's exhausting. What
Yeah.
I'd rather find is that thing that allows me to be able to be consistent and forecast.
Yeah.
Because if I'm able to make 100K, I'll give an example of being on the corporate side. I remember when we would get goals and they would come up with these lofty goals and say, well, we have to generate this much money. And you bust your bum to be able to get that number. And then the next year, they're like, okay, well, now we need to improve upon that. And it's like, well, hold on for a second. We
Yeah.
got that number because instead of working like the 7 or 8 hours, I was working 12 and 14. So now you're telling me I have to put in even more than that.
Yes.
So I bring it back to that to say AI again, it can shorten that time frame and give you more of a work life balance because when people do that, because that part is inevitable, because there are just some people that are very much about the bottom line and not about how what it took to be able to get there. AI is going to allow you to be able to do that, streamline to some things so that you can actually get out of there. Because I remember when we didn't have things like that, I would go in before the same sun came up and I would leave work when the sun went down. So the only time I saw the sun was through the window or when I went out at lunch,
Yeah.
and that's just what it
That's not right.
was.
That's not right.
You know what? Again, the workaholic in me, I
Fair.
learned from that process, and that allowed me to learn how to be able to pace myself and learn how to be able to do things that now,
Yeah.
because there's the easy button. One of the things that I joke with people about is you better hope that there's never a power outage, or there's
Yeah.
never something where all of a sudden you can't use some of these resources because a part of that video I was watching, when they actually got to the end of it, they were talking about the changes and things that are going on in the advertising and marketing industry and how bad it's gotten. And part of it is because I remember seeing a shift as I was leaving where people would say, well, when I was looking for a job, they would say, well, I don't know what you do. And I'm like, well, what do you mean you don't know what I do? Well, you did this and you did this and you did this. I don't know who to send you to. And I was like, we're having different conversations. I know how to do a lot of things. Find me something and I can get in front of them and have a conversation and show them that I can do the thing that they need
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
What they started creating are specialists, and those specialists only know how to do one thing. So if you only know how to do one thing, yes, when AI steps in and it starts telling you that it can do that thing faster and more efficient than you, then you have no backup.
Yeah.
This is why I say, I don't think I'm going to starve because I don't have the scarcity mindset. I have an appreciation of the workflow. I
Yeah.
learned at a very early age, I want to understand the whole process because when I understand the process, when I understand the workflow, as soon as you take one part of that away, I move over to the other part. And then I move over to the other part because the conversation constantly evolves. The game doesn't change, it's just how you go about playing the game. So
Yeah.
part of this conversation is identify where you bring value, not just one place, but multiple places. The better you understand it. And AI, as much as it's getting in your way, it's also telling on itself. It will tell you, here's the workflow as far as we can see it. Here's what I'm good at. Here's what I'm not good at. And
Yeah.
you can identify that and say, okay, well, based on that, I'm going to focus on the parts that you can't do yet. And then when you catch up to that, then I'm going to move on to the next thing that you can't do. And it's a continuous process. I want to bring it back around. I'll skip ahead a
Yeah.
little bit and say, out of all the things that we were talking about, what's one takeaway that you want someone to be able to have from this?
Uh,
Or one action you want them to take based on the fact that we've had this conversation?
think from today's conversation, one of the key takeaways we've discussed is that you, the listeners, you've got a business, you're running a business, and or you have a job and you're afraid of AI, you think it's going to take over. The truth is that you as a human being, your perspective, all the experiences you've had, your education, all these pieces mean that you can use AI to enhance things, but what you bring to the table is still incredibly important. And I
Yeah.
think when people are afraid of AI, that's it. They think that they have become unvaluable, like no longer valuable. And it's
Hmm.
actually the opposite. I believe
Yeah.
that humans are incredibly valuable and that we can use AI to increase our value, but it's not increasing AI's value per se. It's that putting things together. And so maybe the takeaway or what can you do with this next time you're on AI, or if you're not usually on AI, go to AI and think, how can we collaborate in a way that the output is my output, not AI output, but my output? Because another colleague or another business owner couldn't go to a client and give them exactly what I'm going to give them, because
Yes.
I have used my unique set of skills, experience, knowledge, all of these things that, AI has helped me put it together in a really unique way, but it's still mine and I own it. Good or
Hmm.
bad, I own it. And I think that's probably the key takeaway from today. For me, the one thing we keep coming back to, right?
Hmm.
That one thing that AI is a bright-eyed recent university graduate who wants to help, but it still needs your perspective. It still needs your adult overview to really to really have an output that is highly valuable. Yeah.
I love it. I'm laughing because you brought me back to many times, but one of the most recent. I remember working at a company, and there was someone that was at that point. I want to say I was in my 40 or coming up on my 40s, and the person was like half my age, and they came in and were like, "Oh, I feel like I can do what you do," and I'm like, "Okay, good luck with that." Okay. You are missing so much context that the only people that say things like that are people that don't have the context.
That is
And I
total
remember
ignorance.
going away on vacation. I literally gave them step by step instructions. So this is
Yeah.
when I say I know that people don't follow step by step instructions, I'm speaking from experience. I went
Yeah.
on vacation and they said, "Oh, well, I can do what he does." And when I came back, there were all these fires that had to get put out. And the response was, "Oh my God, never take vacation again." My thing is, well, wait, well, what happened? I thought you could do what I do. And it was, well, this happened. And I know you gave the instructions, but then they said this. And I was like, oh, so you discovered caveats. Okay, you discovered there's extra things that go along with it. So
Yes.
yes, brand
You
new
have to make
hires,
decisions.
there's nuance, there's
Yeah.
details that you only get from going through the actual experience. And I think that this is one of the things that I also try to explain to people when they're seasoned in whatever their industry is or their expertise is. This is where I tell them that they have more value in life than they think. So
Yeah.
that gives me context to be able to give you answers based on what I know you already know.
Yeah. Exactly.
There are a wealth of people that have experience. I like in some cases where people say, well, I don't know that I could be an entrepreneur. I don't have that level of expertise. There's nothing that I'm good at that somebody would pay me for. And I don't believe it because I think that there are things that we do in our lives that we just take for granted. And there are people that don't know how to do those things. And you don't need to be an expert. You just need to be more informed than the person that needs the thing. So I will say, if you don't
Yeah.
take anything else from this is why I keep stressing understand the process and understand the workflow.
Yeah.
I'll give an example, there are what I call the weekend warriors, the
Yeah.
people that work a Monday to Friday, and they do whatever they do, but when they get out, they have 2 days to figure out how to make their lives more manageable and more enjoyable. So they have chores, they have run around to do, they've got the kids to be able to see to, they've got all the rest of these things. How are you telling me you can't run a business if you've learned how to be able to do all of those things? If you've learned how to assign chores to certain kids that, I can't give you the laundry. Last time I gave you the laundry, I had a white shirt and it came back pink. I learned my lesson from that. I
Yeah.
won't give you that. I'll give you something that you can handle. That
Or I'll
means that
teach
you've
you how
learned
to
how
do
to
laundry. Yeah.
yes, you've learned how to delegate. You learn how to train somebody on how to do something. If
Yeah.
you know that you have to go do food shopping, but if you wait too long, you'll go to the stores and there'll be long lines. That
Yeah.
means that you figured out how to be more efficient. There are so many
Yeah.
different things that we do in our everyday life that if we figure out how to repackage that and apply it to the same principles that go into being a successful business owner, then you'll be able to actually get paid for things. So I kind of frame it as one of the best ways to be able to look at entrepreneurship is it's the act of making the inconvenient convenient.
Hmm.
So if you can identify with something as inconvenient, where someone is like, you know what, could I do it? Sure. Do I want to do it? No. And the more inconvenient it is, the more they're willing to pay you. So identify the things that someone may not want to be able to do and go, you know what, could I do that? Sure. I've identified things that I naturally do anyway. I have a rule that in my mind of leave people better than you find them. So entrepreneurship made sense for me. So find something that is an inconvenience and figure out how to make it more convenient. And if they prioritize it enough in life, they will say, this is something that I actually want someone to help me with.
I value this.
AI is going to be able to help you do that. AI is going to be able to do the grunt work part of it that you may not want to be able to do. I will also say I saw something, I want to say it was Daniel Priestley that was talking about it, and it threw me off because I was prepping for this call. And he mentioned, because I also had a conversation where we were saying, well, there are going to be certain industries that aren't affected. And he was saying, you know, people keep saying like AI is not going to affect the plumber. And he said, here's the thing that people aren't thinking about. When people stop working on those jobs and they don't get new jobs to replace them, then they all go over to jobs where they say, oh, well, I could be a plumber. But talking about supply and demand, when you have too much supply, then the demand goes, the price for the supply goes down. So what a plumber may get paid for now won't be the same if there's, you know, if you have one plumber, you're going to pay that person more than if you have 500 options. Again, this is why I say when I look at things, my perspective is I'm going to find all the different pathways and then narrow it down to the one that makes the most sense for me. That is my one thing to you. Find out all the things that you could potentially do and get paid for, and then start to narrow it down to the thing that you can do. That one of the ways I explain it, what can you do on a bad day? So if you can identify the things that come natural to you, because I realize my mind works differently. I'm just odd. And because I got that early start to advertising and marketing and got to see it from so many different ways, I don't have to work hard at that part. I spent
Mm.
like I got introduced to it when I was like 7 years old. I'm 52. I've been looking at this for so long that like I don't have to work hard to be able to know what I'm looking at. So it's easier for me to process it. There's something in your life that you're able to do the same thing with. Start looking at those things and start looking at ways to be able to monetize it. And it may seem like a struggle for you to be able to identify what it is, because if you did, you probably would have already done something with it. But
Yeah.
AI can help you identify it and it can help you map it out. And then once you're able to map it out, then it goes back to what I was saying: impossible, possible, plausible, foregone conclusion. So
Yes.
if you can take something that seems impossible and find out that it's actually a talent or a skill that you can leverage, and it's something that you can do on an off day, then you may have a business model. You may have something that you can
Yeah.
do. And
Still with you.
AI is set up to be able to help you identify that and then figure out how you can actually do it in a way that it can at least give you the ideas, and then again, garbage in, garbage out. So if you give it the context of, I want to do this, but I want to do it this way, then it can give you a valuable output.
Yeah.
If you just say, I want to figure out how to be able to do this, it will tell you how to do something, but it may not give it to you in a way that will be agreeable for you. I
Yeah.
know my principles. I know that I'm not someone that wants to take advantage of people. I would rather turn somebody away than take their money if I know that I can't deliver the results. I know
Yeah.
there are plenty of people that don't feel that way.
No. Yeah. You're right. You're absolutely
Go
right.
with them if that's what you want to be able to do. But I
Yeah.
am not going to take your money in that situation, because I base my life on I need to be able to sleep at night, and I want to leave people better than I found them. So
Yeah.
that's how I view things. Identify your personality, where your scruples are, where you start and stop. Have AI help you organize those thoughts. And if you can organize those thoughts, then it can help you identify what that workflow looks like. Whatever
Yeah.
world it is that you want to operate in, it
Yeah.
can tell you what some of the steps are. And then you start to fill in the blanks of the things that it doesn't know. I'm going to say, I'll bring it back to the promise. By
Yes.
the end of this episode, listeners will understand how AI is changing the landscape of everyday work across industries, from strategy to execution, and how they can evolve their role, their value, and their visibility without losing their identity.
Yeah.
I know we've seemed like we've gone in different directions and talked about things where, it may not seem in context. This is not one of those things where you listen to it once. I want people to know that there are going to be certain parts that make sense to them now. I also want you to be able to come back and listen to it when you have more context, because then you'll catch more of the nuanced things that we're talking about. As you start to use AI, you'll start to you'll start to identify new things. Come back and you'll be able to identify new ways to be able to use it and new things that you can do with it. So hopefully we answered those questions and lived up to that promise. I will also give a teaser and say this week we covered that portion, but next week we're going to be talking about who gets to write the new rules and why it should include you, which
I love it.
this is where I get to fall back, because Melody Ann has paid more attention to these things than I do. And she's been keeping track of what's been going on, where I just kind of give it my own rules that I live by. And I realize I'm a nut. So my rules are different than a lot of people's, and I am perfectly fine staying in my lane. But that is going to be the upcoming episode, and I am looking forward to it. And I hope you're looking forward to it as well.
I am.
Before I do anything else, is there anything that you want to cover? Anything that you have coming up? Any closing statements that you want to be able to cover? Because I know I completely threw everything off with a tangent.
No, it's all good. I think, just back to our key takeaway, AI is there for you to use to enhance your own life, whether it's your personal life, your work life. It's not there to give you all the answers. It's not there to take your job. It is there for you to use it to enhance what you want to enhance, but the output is always your responsibility. So go ahead and use it, understand your values and use it by them, and allow it to save you time, allow it to enhance your life, and enjoy the enhancements, whatever that lands up being for you. Really, I think that's the final core message there for me. Yeah. Thank you, Sean.
I will add nothing because that was more hopeful than what I gave people. I want to end on sunshine. I will say thank you so much. Like, share, and subscribe. I hope that you found this valuable. Like I said, there are going to be some things that register and resonate now, and then there are going to be some things that once you get more context, it'll mean more to you later. So this series was selected, and I specifically brought Melody Ann in because it is that deep, and it is something where it isn't a watch it once and you're only going to get what you can get from it once. This is something that has layers and tiers to it. So that is not just me saying that because I want to be able to get engagement. That's what Melody delivers, and that was one of the reasons why I want to bring her in as an expert, because she's not a book learned person per se, even though she's in publishing and authoring. It is someone that has experience and that understands things and can explain things in such a loving and nurturing way that it is a great counter to my sometimes aggressive and negative jaded way. And I wanted to be able to have a great balance so that people can get both sides of it. So I will say thank you so much, and like, share, and subscribe, and we will see you next time. Thank you for tuning in to the Strategic Thinkers Podcast. Remember, when you can make the inconvenient convenient, people are willing to pay you for the experience. The better the experience, the more they'll not only pay you, but help others pay you. Serving as brand champions. My name is Sean Atkinson, and I'm wishing you well on your journey to your definition of success. If you find this podcast interesting, helpful, worth a listen, like, share, and subscribe. Leave a positive review so people know to check it out, and I'll see you next time.